Welcome back everyone to my final Nick's Notebook of the year. We're doing a year in review of gaming in 2024. We're going to take a look at what games actually came out this year and just have a bit of a quick run through and discussion of what actually released this year, as well as my own videos from this year and some quick takeaways from those, or quick updates even on how I feel about those later on in the year. And then we'll also wrap things up with a few topics and stuff worth some discussion. And just my general feelings on the gaming industry right now, gaming in general, and 2024 as a year in gaming. This is going to be a bit of a long one, but I hope you enjoy it. Let's review 2024 as a whole. Here we go.
Now let's do this!
Right, so 2024 has been quite a year in gaming. It's had some very good games. It hasn't, kept up at all with 2023 in terms of just how mad that year was for gaming in general. But it delivered still some pretty good games, and we just had the Game Awards finished recently, which was a bit of a reminder of what's out there. I still think it's a bit crappy that things like Indiana Jones that came out in December skipped that, and it's going to be moved into next year, which not only will have it be at the back of people's memories by the time next December rolls around, but also you got games like GTA coming out next year, supposed to be, that are going to probably absolutely obliterate everything. So anyway, we'll get back to that, but having a quick look at 2024, it's been a year of some pretty mixed games, and there's been some good stuff. I mean, if we look at, I've got a list in front of me here of what's come out in 2024. We had games like Balatro, for example, which is a game I haven't played yet, but people are going mad over it, and it's apparently really good and really addictive as a sort of poker, it's almost like a poker solitaire type game. Then you've got Astrobot, which won the Game of the Year award. Everyone's hailing it so much, saying how much fun it is. Helldivers on PlayStation and PC as well just looks amazing, and I'm going to get to this next part now because I've missed a couple of these this year, and as someone who likes to cover everything and also is doing videos about games, it's highly frustrating when I haven't had the chance to play some of these games myself, but I'm going to get to why that is in just a bit. We got Metaphor Refantasio, which was huge, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. There was Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree, which was just incredible DLC and really worth as much as, full games, essentially. And then a lot of other stuff from the year, which is a kind of a little bit, there's some really good stuff, some controversial stuff. We got stuff like Dragon Age the Veilguard and Star Wars Outlaws that just they were more about controversy than they were about the actual flippin' games. And then you've got other great games like Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and, Vessel of Hatred came out for Diablo. And there was, Hades 2 came out in an early form. Silent Hill 2, which was this excellent remake from the team that everyone was doubting, and then they just went and just surprised everyone. So yeah, again, a good year in gaming. There was Hellblade 2, which can be mentioned, but at the same time, that's a game that was pretty impressive in some ways, but I don't think it's going to sit in people's memories too long, which is a shame. Space Marine, Black Myth Wukong, a lot of good stuff out there this year. So really, not a bad year at all. In terms of the PS5s, they had a strong year when they had games like Black Myth Wukong, which I still can't believe didn't make it to Xbox by the end of the year, which is a really bad look for them. But the PS5 had Final Fantasy, 7 Rebirth, and it had Astrobot, and it had all these other sort of great solid exclusives that the Xbox was sort of struggling to keep up with. But as for next year, for 2025 on the PlayStation 5, we've got Ghost of Yotei, we've got Death Stranding 2, and if you look into what else is coming, Phantom Blade Zero maybe, Marvel's Wolverine is also sort of a maybe. I would really like to see some more confirmations coming from the PlayStation side of things early next year, because right now it's looking a little bit slim, so I'd like to see what's happening from them. This was a pretty good year for Xbox, and it was a year where it felt also like a lot of Game Pass games, the sort of release schedules and stuff have been pretty good, and it's really starting to get there. We had things like Indiana Jones, which is out now, which is really fantastic. S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 also that came, where we had Hellblade 2 earlier in the year, which was still a pretty fancy game, but like I said before, I feel like it missed the mark a bit. If you watch my video on the channel, you'll know what I'm talking about with that. But either way, Game Pass was quite strong, and never mind the exclusives, there's actually so many great smaller games and other games coming to Game Pass this year that I actually felt frustrated because I couldn't get to enough of them. There's games I wanted to play. So I mean, the honest truth here, and that's why it's kind of sad to see how a lot of the talk around Xbox has been, but it also makes me interested in what they're doing next, is that the thing is, if you're just like a person who wants to play games, you're not involved in this whole story of big, amazing exclusives or, you know, things like The Last of Us and these big, amazing, life-altering exclusives. If you're just a person, a gamer who wants a console with an affordable structure that lets you play some games, an Xbox with Game Pass is amazing. A Series S, even with a few of its faults with Game Pass, is incredible. And this is the thing with Xbox and where they want to go from here, because they're now going for this whole strategy of this is an Xbox, this is an Xbox. So they want you to see your PC as an Xbox, they want you to see some handheld that you've gotten as an Xbox. They want to do that, they want to get it out on everywhere. This is quite controversial right now, but at the same time, it does kind of align up and make sense, because if you look at what I was just saying now about the average game or the average person who just wants some games to play, they want to play them sort of easily and anywhere for an affordable amount of money, sort of like they want Netflix that is on your phone and your PC and your TV. They're trying to do that, and they've got a really good lineup of games, and they want to put it on the cloud. And this is where I'm a bit frustrated as well, because I don't have where I am in my region and many other regions, there's no cloud gaming yet from Xbox. So we can't take advantage of something like that yet, and it's apparently really impressive. So I'd really like to see that moving into more regions soon, because they really need to get that out everywhere. Now, I know they don't care much for certain regions as much as others. I mean, our region here at the southern tip of Africa is, you know, we're doing business that's so tiny, we probably match one city in America. You know, one decent chunk city probably does better money than our entire industry down here. But, you know, the more the merrier, and everything counts. So I'd like to see more of that, because maybe they're onto something. I had a discussion with someone in the comments of I can't remember if it was like a Twitter or Blue Sky reply thread or a Reddit post, but it was basically the point I made to them was, if you look at what Microsoft is doing now, it's funny the way this might go, because you might look at Xbox 5 or 10 years from now, and in hindsight, you might say, because now we're saying, what are they doing? Like they're killing what it is to be an Xbox. They're sort of taking it away. Are the consoles going to sort of die out, even though they're going to be supplying consoles still going forward? Is this going to be like a really bad move for them? And is this going to turn them into a bit of a Sega and you know, kill them and put PlayStation and Nintendo in really strong positions? The problem I have with that is that it's removing competition, especially in the hardware space. I, for example, find it ridiculous that the PS5 can't do things like Quick Resume yet, because Quick Resume is amazing. I absolutely love it. And they have like things like that. PS5 hasn't sort of done, but the longer this goes, the less they care, because it's like, oh, we don't really need to match all these things they did. I mean, let's not forget that the PS4, when it started, didn't have things like rest mode. You know, like the Xbox was doing that, and Xbox was doing other things, and they have this need to sort of keep up, and that's gonna maybe disappear. And I'd be sad if that happens, because competition is good. On that note, are we going to look back 10 years from now or 5 years from now and say, man, were we wrong? Like, Microsoft set themselves up for this new era of gaming that the other two companies didn't see coming, and they absolutely obliterated everyone. They came into this new space where everything was cloud and everything was this and that and subscription or whatever, and you never know, because you just don't know what's going to happen. We have to wait and see, because we never know. Look what AI has just done in the last 2 years. When ChatGPT first came out, like 3.0 or so, I said to my friends and family who were visiting me on that weekend, I said to them, guys, this is just, I need you to understand, from what I see what just happened here, the world is about to fundamentally change. And I mean, it's been about a year and a bit since then, and it is changing at such a rapid pace, we really don't know what things are going to look like in 5 years from now. So, interesting times.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.
Right, so now I want to take a look at the videos that I did this year. And as mostly a one-man show who has to do his editing and video creation at night, I look at this list and I can't believe how many videos I've done in the last year. It honestly blows my mind sometimes, and I do remember waking up very miserable and groggy many a morning because of the late nights spent on these, but I love doing it, I'm passionate about it, and of course I feel that, you know, it's worth it. I think that it's only worth doing if you have an audience, so I'm always thankful when people are watching the videos, and I'm sometimes get some great comments from people saying that they really enjoyed it or it resonated with them, or of course sometimes I get told about all these millions that I'm being paid from Microsoft or Ubisoft or whoever it is to say that a game is good when it clearly sucks, despite the person commenting having never played it. But I digress. Let's get on to the videos. It often only takes a few moments to identify a game that's had a lot of love poured into its creation. I'm really happy to say that Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown feels like one of them. I did a video at the beginning of the year for Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, and that is a game that is criminally underrated and underplayed. That game is basically, I would say happily, about as good as Metroid Dread, which was my favorite game from the year when that came out. I couldn't tell you what it was now. Was it 2020 or 2021? I can't remember. But it is a fantastic Metroidvania side-scrolling game. And it's like I said, it's absolutely criminal because it really deserved better. So if you see that game on a sale or something like that, or you're just interested, pick it up. It's really good. I don't know if people really understood what they were missing. So after that,
I'm here to report a terrible crime.
Suicide Squad. That game is dead. So I reviewed it earlier in the year, and we already know that it is dead. They're closing it down after the next bit of content that comes out. And man, that game, you know what, there's nothing disappoints me more than when a game shows its potential and then doesn't deliver that potential. I actually really liked the beginning of Suicide Squad. I thought that it was fun. I thought there was some funny stuff going on. Some of the writing was cool. The gameplay actually felt cool between the different characters. It was all going pretty well. And then you play the campaign, and then suddenly it just like falls off a cliff. All of a sudden, the next mission I did in the campaign just felt like some form of live action or live service free-to-play, you know, rehashed slop. And you are just like, oh my word. Like, it started as this well-crafted single-player type of game and then just immediately transitioned into something else. And it just died for me right there. I was like, oh, this just suddenly feels so shallow. And that's a shame. And it's dead now. So I hope they're happy with themselves. Over at Warner Brothers, where they took a team that was clearly talented and just absolutely wasted their skills. And on that note, I can go straight over to the next game, because here we have a similar situation that went a completely different way, which is Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 comes out. It's also a multiplayer game that's supposed to basically be live service and continue on and be played with your friends, but Helldivers 2 is awesome. And if I've spoken about any frustrations I have with not being able to play some PS5 games and things so far, I also don't have a decent PC gaming rig either at the moment, so I haven't been able to play Helldivers 2, but every time you look at that game, it blows your mind. Like, I just watch the gameplay and I think, oh my word, this really looks like these people are running around in some sort of live cinematic, you know, experience, and they're just having the best fun. And it's quite interesting what happened with Helldivers 2 because of this whole modern approach to things. It's gone through lots of ups and downs. It comes out, everyone's like, whoa, this is amazing. I mean, our review for Helldivers 2 actually had quite a big influx of people, which was quite cool. Everyone was excited and interested and went jumping in, but then there's these ups and downs because they do an update, they change some things, now everyone hates the game. So they go to Steam or whatever, they downvote it, now it's this terrible game that no one likes and it's showing mostly negative. Then they fix some stuff, then people vote for it again, and then it goes up again. So it's kind of weird having such a live sort of voting poll on how much, you know, how people think of your game right now. It's far from those times where the game would just sort of get a good review or a bad review in the beginning and be stuck there. And yeah, and I must mention as well, that video, like I said, had a good start. And then it kind of just sort of settled down for quite a long time, but then the Game Awards came out just recently, and it was nominated and it won some stuff, and I don't know if it just put things on people's radar again at a good time that's also just before Christmas. But yeah, that video that I did in conjunction with Kelly, where we got it up, and we had a little bit of an extra focus at the end on if it's fun to play solo. I actually had to update that video a little bit because some people got a bit upset with us because they went into the video and we gave them the impression that it was a full review of what the game's like as a solo player, but it was more just a little tacked on part at the end. So I did some updates on that video actually to try and sort of make good on that. But that video has recently just absolutely jumped up. Like my daily views on that video have just gone up a lot because everyone seems to be coming in to look into it and find out more about it, maybe going into Christmas or maybe because of the Game Awards. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, it's just picked up at a heck of a speed, and a lot of people are busy watching that now and they seem to be very interested in it. Okay, moving on from that, I decided to finally fix a big gap in my cinematic education by finally watching some or all of the famous samurai movies that I'd always heard about. And I did a video version of an article I actually wrote quite a while back, just before Ghost of Tsushima came out. And it's the 6 best samurai movies to watch if you're a fan of, Ghost of Tsushima, or maybe you were amped to play the remaster that came out recently, the PC version. And then, not really a remaster, hey, more just the PC version, but also now the arrival of Ghost of Yotei coming next year, it sort of makes it a bit relevant again. But the short version of this is, check out this video if you're keen on getting into some old school samurai movies, or also just finding out a bit more about the inspirations and things behind these games, especially relevant to Ghost of Tsushima. But I did this thing that before it came out, I really went on what I call the samurai film adventure, and I went and got my hands on some of the best that I'd ever heard of, things like Seven Samurai and Yojimbo and Zanjuro and Harakiri, all these kind of things, and watched them. And yeah, there's some really cool movies in there if you want to go dig into some really old classic stuff, and some of it's a bit new as well, but yeah. I gave Stasis Bone Totem full marks in 2023 and called it a must-play for any PC game. I'm a big fan of a local here in South Africa, a local development company called Brotherhood Games. They've made games such as Stasis, as well as Beautiful Desolation. They've also they not too long ago released Stasis Bone Totem, which I originally played on PC, but it got a conversion over to console that was sort of done by, I think it's a different team together with like a publisher. And I was actually really disappointed because I played it on Switch and it actually had quite a lot of problems that I really didn't like. And I saw in some of the comments and things as well that some people were saying that this team that does the conversions and this publisher have apparently done things like this in the past and they don't do a great job, and that'll be very disappointing to me because, like I said, I know and chat to the people from Brotherhood Games online here and there. They're good dudes. And the games are really good. I believe in them. I really like them. I don't just say that because it's local. And yeah, so it's a bit of a diss for me to have them deal with that sort of case. So to be fair, I haven't tried them again since it came out. And I'm really hoping that gets sorted because I really thought Stasis Bone Totem was something quite special. And it's something a lot more people can enjoy. The first Stasis was a lot scarier. It was a lot more like an old school isometric horror, whereas this one was more like a horror themed, mystery and adventure, which is really cool. So yeah, I'm gonna try those again at some point to see if they've gotten a bit better, but yeah, that was disappointing at the time.
You can be a hero by purchasing a residence in a Vault-Tec vault today. The world is gonna need you to build a better day after.
The Fallout show came out this year, and that was a nice surprise, wasn't it? Like, a lot of us didn't know what to expect when that came out, but Fallout was fantastic. It's not often that you get, someone like Jonathan Nolan who comes along and just does the craziest thing. I mean, we've seen games get decently adapted into movies and shows and things now. Of course, I'm not even going to mention something like Arcane because that's just incredible, but that's not really a game conversion as such. That's just a property going over. The Fallout show was so cool because I don't think I've ever experienced an adaptation like this, where literally they are throwing so many direct references to exactly how you play the game into the show, and it works so well. From the way the Pip-Boys work and the way that they activate them to the way that they deal with things around them, it's like you would do it in the show, even to the point that in the game, even to the point that you gotta love like the references of, you know, the ghoul saying things like, you know, he basically sits and bitches about side quests and how you always get distracted while you're trying to do your main quest. I mean, just brilliant. And I'm so happy that show did so well, and I'm so happy we're going to get more of it. So I did a video about the show, and also just what people who enjoyed that might want to go look into if they want to now go get into Fallout. And that also then pushed me over into a few more videos where I went and revisited Fallout 4 to give it another go again, because I never finished it. I sort of hit a bit of a wall with it at one point, but also now there's all the mods. It's on, Xbox Series X and everything, and I also went and did a video on how it's feeling on the older consoles that it came out with originally, and I was quite surprised. I mean, if you look at that one about the Xbox One and everything, I was quite surprised to load up a whole bunch of the mods that I loaded up on the new version that make the game look significantly better. Like, it looks a lot better if you load up the right things to the environment and that, and it's all running on like an Xbox One. So I'm actually pretty impressed with that. This also then got me not only playing Fallout 4 more, but it had me really wanting to go and now put that side by side with Starfield, because Starfield is the recent release from these people. Fallout 4 is suddenly in the spotlight because the show is out and they don't have a new Fallout ready to sell to people along with the massive success of this game. So in my opinion, I have to imagine that what they're doing right now is going all hands on deck to make sure that they have some form of Fallout available in sync with season 2 of the show, because the show was so popular, they lost out big time by not having a new Fallout ready on the side to say, hey, do you like that? Well, jump into this. And it'll be interesting to see if the show somehow then also inspires a bit of a different or change in direction or tone from the previous games. But at the same time, the show was so close to the games that I almost don't know how they would do that, because it really hit the nail on the head. But now with Starfield being a recent controversial point where people are wondering, they're not wondering, people are just sort of a little bit underwhelmed by Starfield. But then we also had the newer updates coming out. I did a video about the Starfield in 2024, because now we got the 60 FPS update out, and I'm going back and playing Fallout 4 now with mods and everything, and I'm thinking, wow, Fallout 4 is feeling so good right now. And now I'm comparing it to this latest game that the same people made, and I want to play the old game, because I can go and play Fallout 4 right now. I can play it at 60 FPS. I can play it with incredible visual mods that make it feel a lot more contemporary than it did back in the day. And the game just reminds you over and over again why it's a better game than Starfield. And let's not forget that Fallout 4 wasn't even like that much when it came out. It wasn't put on the same level as Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. It had issues. It was a lot shallower. It just, my biggest problem is I actually bored myself in that game because I got too stuck into the community building, or the encampments and things like that. And I actually sort of got so stuck into managing these things that I got tired of the game and I stopped playing. And I just realized if you just sort of forget that stuff behind and go and focus on the main quests, then the game comes alive again. But so that's been an interesting thing. I'll also tell you a fun little fact from this year that happened and no one mentioned once in over 7,000, nearly 8,000 people who watched a video. I did my video on Starfield in 2024 with a 60 FPS update, and due to a little technical error, I outputted that video at 30 FPS by mistake. So my 60 FPS update video runs at 30 FPS, and it is how long is it? It's a 12-13 minute video, so it's not like the longest one, it's not short either, not one person noticed and not one person commented on it. That, like, you know, which it's funny because it makes you wonder. You know, I realized it once it was up and I'm like, oh damn, I've made a mistake here. But it makes you realize in hindsight, like, if no one noticed, if not one person commented and said, hey, why, you know, this doesn't look different, or why isn't this at 60 FPS? You gotta wonder, like, again, all this hoo-ha that people like to go about and throw toys about 60 versus 30, you gotta wonder how many people are just in it for the game, you know. And when I say the game, I don't mean the video game, I just mean the sport that has become, you know, complaining on the internet about things. Look, that said, it made a big difference. It had some jankiness, but a game like this at 30 is okay, but man, it's just so much better at 60. So I actually really like the 40 FPS mode that they did, and my monitor or my TV can handle it. If any game can offer a 40 mode now, I actually think every single game, if they can, should offer a 40 FPS mode just as an option. I think that it really, really is great. So I really hope that more games pick up on that and include it. I tell you, I'd really like one of those for S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. And speaking of sort of semi-janky frame rates,
Please listen. I've got one or two things to say.
just a quick touch on Dragon's Dogma 2. I'd never played the first one, but I did review the second one this year. And I actually quite liked the game. I thought it was pretty cool, but it had some flaws. It definitely felt a bit unfinished in a way. And its frame rate could go all over the place. It was also an unlocked frame rate, but geez, some of the places that you got to in towns and things are just absolutely tanked. I don't know, I haven't gone into it again that recently to go and see if it got any better, but I don't know. That game looked like it had potential. It doesn't seem to be as loved as the first one. My biggest problem was more the auto-saving functions and the way that worked, because man, that game's saving function sucked, and it had the potential to make you lose tons of progress sometimes. And I even had a situation where like two of my sort of supporting helper characters just completely decided to murder themselves and kill themselves off of a bridge, and I couldn't do anything about it because I think the game saved like right after that. It's like, cool, well they're dead, and you can't do anything about it. There's no like custom saves and things. So yeah, I don't know if it's any better now, but I'll just say if you ever have your eye on that game, make sure that they fix that first before going in, because it had a few problems.
Remember in the beginning of the original Hellblade where one of the voices in Senua's head said there'd be no more stories coming after this?
There will be no more stories after this one.
That was a lie.
I then reviewed Hellblade 2, and Hellblade 2 was an interesting one, because Hellblade 2 is absolutely mind-blowing. Because that game looks incredible. I mean, it was pushing on some of the closest visuals that you're ever going to see that are cinema level animation, if I can put it that way, or cinema level sort of visual effects. But man, as much as that part of it was cool, that game was a disappointment. And I can tell you that because if I compare that to how I felt about Hellblade 1, Hellblade 1 had that sort of scrappy indie feel about it, and it was very cool, but it had some interesting things going on about it. But Hellblade 2, it feels like the only real thing I remember it for is its graphics, because they dumbed down the gameplay terribly. It felt just like a sort of, I mean, it almost felt like you were playing something that was on rails, except, you know, a bit better. But the puzzles were sort of dumbed down and not interesting. The combat was kind of cool, but limited in a way. So it was a cool experience, but that's what it was. It was an experience. It's not a video game as such. It really kills me, because if they just improved on things like the puzzles and things, it could have already made it so much better. And the puzzles were just kind of dumb, and they were just kind of simple, and that was a real shame. After the review, I did a follow-up video about it, a Nick's Notebook, about, talking about it and saying when the player doesn't matter. And that is what I touched on a bit more, is that this felt like a game where the developers almost forgot about us. Like, they were so busy trying to impress us with graphics and to deliver this experience and this story of Senua that they sort of forgot that we're involved. And it just felt like, I gave some ideas in there just about what I would have maybe done to make it a little bit more interesting. I also think there is a bit of a missed opportunity here, because some people thought that this was going to be potentially like a bit of a change, or I know I did. I said to people, you know what I think they're going to do with this new Senua game a while back? I said, you know, what they really need to do is they need to evolve this franchise and they need to make it more like God of War or something. Make that into Xbox's God of War. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be just like that, but go that direction. Go take this idea you had for the first one and go expand on it. Even if it was more like something like a Plague Tale, which is sort of in the same department, also really good looking, and it just has so much better, such better gameplay. But just go deeper, go into this thing, expand it, go, you know, put some more depth into the gameplay, some more variety, make this into something else. It could go in the direction of a Horizon Zero Dawn type game, or it could go into a God of War type game, or just something completely different even. But I think that was a missed opportunity, and I even think that if they take another crack at Hellblade, they should really try and use what they've got here and go and make something bigger and better. I'm not always a fan of bigger and better, but in this case, I think that they have the ingredients. They just need to, you know, get the right recipe. So moving on.
Welcome to Ubisoft's XDefiant, or as I like to call it, Tom Clancy's Overcod.
Here's a game that I actually landed up playing quite a lot this year, and this has been a bit of a roller coaster ride. This is XDefiant. Now, if you don't know what XDefiant is, it was basically a previous Call of Duty team, which I think worked on like Modern Warfare 2 or something like that back in the day. They wanted to come out with a Ubisoft version of sort of like XDefiant is sort of like a Call of Duty gameplay-wise type game with a few twists, but it also uses all of the properties that Ubisoft has, like a bit of a Ubisoft Disneyland here. So you've got things like, you know, Splinter Cell people, and you've got people from The Division, and you've got people from Far Cry and stuff like that. And the game was really fun. We played this game a lot when it came out. It had great gameplay, it was lots of fun. It had some issues that really needed to be sorted out, like the sniping and all the jumping around and things, but the game was fun. But what really screwed this game badly was the fact that this game had issues with its netcode, and it also they were specifically targeting this idea of non-skill based matchmaking and things like that. But the problem was the netcode, and the reason for that isn't just that people were feeling like they're getting shot around corners and things, but it was the fact that there would be games where certain people were just literally like gods. They would run around and wreck everyone and no one could touch them. And you just think to yourself, wow, these guys must be really good. But you start realizing after a while, something is wrong. And then it really came to light the one game where it happened to me. We got into a game and suddenly, I don't know why, but I just felt like everyone was dying on the first bullet that I shot at them. It felt like I could take so many hits and not die, and I landed up getting this crazy score, and you're just like, yeah man, this is just like a lottery. Like every time you play, you just risk being on the receiving end of this or being this. But, and again, a big shame because this game is now dead. This, just like Suicide Squad, has been essentially killed off before its year is up because they just couldn't keep up. And then Black Ops 6 came along, and Black Ops 6 is absolutely smashing this thing. So they're done for. And it's a shame because the truth of the matter is the thing that actually killed them was the netcode. And they said that the netcode is not something that is easily fixable, so we knew this was going to be an issue.
I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
On a side note, I made a video which has now been renamed to XDefiant is dead, but these moments were cool or whatever. And I decided to do something different this year and make like a really fun video where I took a whole bunch of clips of XDefiant and I put them together and had some fun with like GIFs and sound effects and all this kind of thing. I was really proud of it. My friends that watched it and some other people told me they thought it was awesome. And to this day, this video only has 133 views. So like nobody has seen this video, and YouTube seems absolutely hellbent on all but hiding this thing from people. So if you want to honor the memory of XDefiant, and you also would like to help me feel like all the time I spent on that video wasn't for nothing, please click and go and watch this video and at least have a giggle at the game as we remember it as it now plummets to the ground to die in obscurity. Moving on. I'm a lifelong, huge Formula 1 fan. Go Ferrari, go Leclerc. And I reviewed F1 24 this year. I play F1 23 a lot. And we would play F1 23 because it was on Game Pass, and me and my friends would get together on race weekends and race the track and have a lot of fun, and it was silly and awesome, which was a bit of a surprise then when F1 24 came out, and you think, well, the formula is pretty good. Normally they just copy and paste these things anyway, which is insulting to say the least, but somehow when F1 24 came out, it was worse. Like they updated the handling and it was just terrible. Everyone hated it, and it just felt silly and stupid and wrong, and they have apparently since updated it, but I still just don't think there was any good reason to update to F1 24. So if it's in a good spot now, great, but I mean, at this point and the season being over, I'd just hang on, because it looks like with EA Play, these come to Game Pass a year later anyway, so you may as well just do that and find out if F1 25 is any better if you want to do that. But at the same time, it's worth noting that we are going to get new regulations for F1 in 26, I believe. So that's going to change the game up completely. We're going to have different cars, the sizes are changing, some of the way the aero is changing. It's going to be a pretty significant game difference by then. So you might want to hold down until then. Keeping up with the theme of racing, as a big fan of racing and motorsports and things like Forza and Gran Turismo, I've been keeping up videos here and there on Forza Motorsport, and I did a video as well. This when was this? This was earlier in the year when the Le Mans update basically came out during the weekend. It was around the time of the Le Mans 24 hour, and they put the endurance races and things into the multiplayer. And you know what? This game, I said at the time that it was making me quite optimistic, and the thing is that Forza has had a rocky start, and there should be no excuses for that either, but it's actually on the up and up really nicely now. I really enjoyed the multiplayer events for the endurance stuff. It was actually really cool. I also found out that I really am well suited to Ferrari as a fan for my whole life, because I apparently am also as good at stuffing up strategies with my races when I'm playing racing games. So the long endurance races were really fun because you had to think a bit about your tire strategies and everything, and I was just so incredibly bad at it. So I would like do well in the driving, and then I would come into pit, and then I'd pit, and then I would realize that I mistakenly put on way too much fuel or way too little fuel by mistake, and then I would then run out of fuel before the end of the race, or I would have the wrong tires on or something like that. Although I still blame the game a bit for a bit of a crappy interface, especially when you're coming into the pits, and the fact that you can't be a little bit more detailed with how you want to add fuel or things like that. Anyway, Forza's just been on the up and up. So I mean, my note here in my notebook basically just says this game keeps improving. And I went and played a bit this week as well, because they've added a new map, and they added the Australian supercar type stuff. And I mean, since the game's come out now, there's a whole bunch of new maps that are awesome. I mean, I say maps, but I mean tracks, of course. So, I mean, we've got tracks that have come out. They've added Sunset Peninsula, which is one of my favorites. They've now, now it's got, since it came out, Yas Marina, it's got the Nürburgring, it's now got Bathurst or Mount Panorama, which is the one that they just added now. And yeah, it's now got a nice, good, chunky load of tracks and things like that. It's just getting better all the time. It's still got things that I wish they would fix. One thing that drives me mad, especially as someone playing the campaign quite a bit here and there, or the featured events and things, I absolutely hate that when you load into a race, for some reason it by default gives your car tons of fuel. So I would go into practice to start racing, and then on like lap 2 or 3 I realized that I'm gonna do like a 4-lap race, and I'm sitting with like 12 laps of fuel in my car, and I'm wondering why I'm struggling getting around the corners, because I'm driving a tank around. So yeah, things like that just annoy me, and they still got a lot of little things to do there. But like I said, at least there is a lot of good happening there, and it's getting a bit better. One last quick note: if you're playing this on Xbox, if you want the right, I've figured out what the right graphics setting is. Turn off the on-track ray tracing, because it's actually just a gimmick. It doesn't really help at all. Put it into the mode which I think is called, I think it's just performance. It's not performance RT and it's not quality. Just put it into performance, where there's no ray tracing. because basically what you're getting is a good looking version of the game without the ray tracing you don't even notice, and importantly, the resolution stays crisp. Because if you're running the ray tracing version, especially on like heavier tracks, things like, I think it was like the full Nürburgring Nordschleife and stuff, it's just the resolution dips so hard to manage everything. The game looks super muddy all the time. So put it in the normal performance mode, just take the better resolution and take those graphics and you won't look back. But I would love to see, other options or some more optimization, but the game's been optimized a hell of a lot since it came out. Like, it looks a lot better, the dynamic res stays a lot higher, longer, and things like that. So, in a good place. I still dip into that game quite often. It's nice. It's my go-to game when I just want to sort of jump into something and go play for half an hour, or not think too much, and I just go maybe do a career race or do some practices and a race after that sort of thing.
Both your deeds will ever be praised in song.
Cool, moving on. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC came out and it was phenomenal. I have actually played a whole bunch of it. I did a video on it also talking about if it's too hard. It has since been actually modified a little bit here and there, but I never actually finished the full DLC and I'm really looking forward to going back to it. I like taking my time and coming back to things, so I'm really looking forward to jumping back in at some point, maybe now during the holidays or something, and just, giving it a good crack again. However, I need to come back to the break I took from Baldur's Gate 3 as well after putting in over 100 hours. So that's going to be my main focus, Baldur's Gate 3. And if I can, then I'm maybe going to jump into some Shadow of the Erdtree and a few other things. But, magnificent. And, it was controversial that DLC was being added in the Game of the Year or the Game Awards for, some of these nominations. And I don't think it's that controversial when it's something like Shadow of the Erdtree, because honestly, at the price that game's being given and the amount of content and the masterful design, that game absolutely deserves to be put in the running compared to various other full price, full games that came out this year that weren't even nearly as good as that. If I could have had Phantom Liberty be added as a nomination last year, I absolutely would have done that. Cyberpunk has now officially, for me, jumped right up to the top of some of my favorite gaming of all time. I absolutely love it. I love that world. I love Phantom Liberty, and I love the fact that even though these bozos at CD Projekt Red said that they stopped updating the game, and the video I did, so it's worth noting, or sort of segueing into this, that I did a video earlier this year called Is Cyberpunk 2077 Good Now? And I did a 2024 update. It's a very popular video on my channel. Also popular is a video I did before of how Cyberpunk runs on Xbox One now, if it's any better since launch, and the fact that it doesn't actually run Phantom Liberty. But this game is in a magnificent place, and people are clearly interested because I get so many people coming to the channel to come watch these videos because they want to know if it's good now. And it had a sucky start, it was terrible in the beginning, and it is so good now. And in my video, I start by saying silly things like, this game is done. Done. Like, CD Projekt Red have done their final updates, they said they're not touching this anymore. And since I said that, I think they've had four updates since then, and they're still like, oh, here's cool new features and here's cool new this and that. So I don't know what the hell they're doing with it, but please, guys, continue being dumb. Please just keep updating that game. I would love excuses to go back to that world because I miss it. I really wish something like their multiplayer component still happened, because man, I would love excuses to go back there. Please, like, I don't know, put in mods or something. Let other people make stuff that I can go play. Thank you very much. Alright, moving on from Cyberpunk, I reviewed Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess. It's a cool little game that sort of mixes up things like, almost like tower defense mixed with action RPG and stuff like that. It's an obscure little Game Pass release, and the video didn't even bring in much interest, but people have seemed to liked it, and I think it's Sega that did it, and I think this one sort of might age well, if I can put it that way. So let me get
this straight. They've gone and made a 4K remaster of an HD remaster of an old console and PC game from 2003.
I also reviewed the Beyond Good and Evil remaster, and it's a bit of a weird one because there's always this debate over what's a remaster and what's a remake. This really is somewhere in the middle. It is a remaster, but they did update some stuff quite a bit, so it is a good remaster. Like, it's not a lazy, HD upgrade. But that said, I've always wanted to like Beyond Good and Evil, and I've never been able to fully get into it, and I played the HD remaster when it originally came out, and this just isn't that much better than that for me to think that it's really worthwhile, and I can't understand who this is good for, because the people who did like the game already played it originally or on the HD remaster, and this isn't that much better than the HD remaster, which they now have, if I remember right, they sort of delisted, and so you can only buy this one now. I really think this could have benefited from a remake. Like, this really could have benefited from just a whole new modernized take on the game, sort of like what we've seen with things like, Resident Evil 2 and things like that, where it's like, oh, it is a remake of that game, but we really are actually remaking this into something that's a modern version of it, so yeah, I feel like that's a shame because I still feel like there's something there, but they've sort of blown the opportunity. I did finally play a Luigi's Mansion game, which I'm really chuffed about. I played Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which came to Switch, and I've always wanted to play one of these, and it landed up being like totally awesome. Like, I love it, and what's cool as well is my kids even loved it, and I love Halloween, and Halloween came around, and my kids are too young and afraid of scared stuff that I can't really show them anything too spooky, but this is like perfect. Like, my youngest kid even had such a good time just sitting watching me play, and he found it so amusing because they do the whole spooky thing really, really well. So I really enjoyed that. If you've got a Switch and you've never played a Luigi's Mansion for any reason, like me, who just seem to have missed them all these years, give it a go. It's really cool. That was actually in a bigger video that I did, which I was still experimenting with because I was calling it games, reviews, and other news, or also what's good in gaming, things like that. I'm still trying to decide on what kind of format I want to do here, but I want to do something a little bit more interesting where I do some, maybe, I play quite a lot of games and bounce around between them, so I wanted to sort of just do like hey, here's what I've been playing, here's also some news bits and bobs that you might find interesting. So I might split these things up into other things. I especially think there's a bit of a gap right now for sort of quick, more casual news for people who don't generally follow casual or gaming news much. So it's just like sort of the highlights of stuff you really need to know, the stuff that your average gamer will find interesting. Anyway, I'm going to be experimenting with that a bit more. I did do one a bit more recently as well. But like I said, this channel is a bit of like a lab for me. So I don't mind messing around and trying things out and just, finding things that might work and then carrying on with it. Ultimately, I started this to just enjoy myself and have fun making videos. Okay, but next up, a big game that arrived on the scene this year.
Ever wanted to be the Emperor's unrelenting, unstoppable angels of death? Me too.
Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. Absolutely epic looking game. I mean, from the first time we sort of saw it, it was like, whoa, this is looking cool, and everyone knew this is looking cool and badass. And it totally delivered on that badassness and that badassery. And one of the reasons I went in super pumped about this game is that it was being made by the people who made World War Z, who I will never stop talking about whenever I make a video and I have an excuse to talk about them at Saber. World War Z is incredible and underrated and underplayed and underloved, and people just don't know enough about how good it is now. And they were doing a lot of the stuff that Space Marine 2 was doing already a while back.
What the fuck?
For World War Z. And I cannot wait to jump in with my co-op group and go back to it, because we just love that game. We're just also looking for any excuse to go back and play more of it. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So yeah, in short, Space Marine 2, my video's there if you want to go watch it, but spoiler alert, it rocks. But go watch the video anyway, because it's fun and the game just looks so cool. Moving on.
I'm not even going to beat around the bush on this because I've completely fallen in love with Star Wars Outlaws, and I think there's a good chance that you're going to love it too.
I finally get to the part of the year where I reviewed one of the biggest puzzling experiences of my life as a reviewer, which was Star Wars Outlaws. I actually got this game early, which made me happy because a lot of the times I get things very late or on launch day. And what was interesting about getting this early is that I was so chuffed that I got it early, while the rest of the gaming industry was upset because they didn't get it early enough. So here I was happy I actually had a few days head start on the release date, whereas they were complaining that they didn't have like weeks. What happened though, however, is that the reviews came out and they weren't great. And I took some issue to this. It's kind of interesting when you're reviewing something pre-release, you don't know what anyone else thinks yet. So when your review goes live as the embargo lifts, you don't know if you're going to be on the same page as people or not. My review came out, this game is great. And other reviews came out and they were like, this game is not great. And then started the controversy that had started, well, it had started already before the game came out, but a whole bunch of people crying because the lead character's jaw is too square and woke, blah, blah, and all this stuff. And man, what a bad rap this game got, because some people hated on the gameplay and they said that the stealth wasn't so good and things like that. And they were correct. It could have been better. And actually, since it came out, the team making it, who I might add massive, made like games like The Division before. So it is a bit of a perplexing situation when their gunplay isn't that good, when they've done cover-based gunplay better before, and even sort of stealth elements. But at the same time, there was so much good in this game, and it wasn't all the stuff that people were trying to complain about online was nonsense. This game was cool, and the exploration in this game and the world and the detail and stuff is amazing. Just walking around some of those areas, sitting playing games of S.T.A.L.K.E.R, it was one of the better Star Wars experiences I've ever had, where you felt like you were in a Star Wars world and you were running around. Now last year when I made my end of 2023 video, I sort of had a bit of a twist there where everyone was going crazy about all the other great games that came out last year, but my secret little game of the year was actually Star Wars Jedi Survivor, because it also had some issues at launch and things that needed to be solved, especially on PC. That game was so good, and it finally came to things like Game Pass and that, and my friends all finally played it ages down the line, and one by one everyone was coming out of the game saying, man, that was such a good game. And it's interesting that we're getting two different Star Wars games at two different times like this, from two different companies, but still kind of close together. And this isn't as good as Star Wars Jedi Survivor, but really, this game is going to age well, and I've said it before online and stuff, this game is going to age well. People are going to come back to this and they're going to be like, damn, this game was actually better than we realized. And yeah, so all the controversy around it, oh geez, I'll get into that maybe a bit later, but it's just such nonsense, man. People aren't playing games anymore. Like I said, they've made a sport of complaining out of it, and some of them have made a business out of complaining out of it. If they've updated the things to make the stealth less prevalent now and you can get away with more sort of stuff and everything, please, in future, check out that game. Go check out my video. There is something really good there. That game is actually really cool. I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm quite keen to jump back in to go do the DLC and stuff. So don't let it drop off your radar because of a few things you heard here and there. There's a lot of good in that game, especially if you're a Star Wars fan.
Just like Grand Theft Auto, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is a game about drugs, theft, crime, and piracy.
Zelda Echoes of Wisdom came out for Nintendo Switch. I took a different crack at a type of comedy for that video that absolutely did not translate well, and I think I actually lost some subscribers who thought I was being some sort of woke rage baity type person, but I was just trying to make fun of like the comical parts of the game and the fact that she basically has a wand of copy paste and that you can finally play as Zelda for the first time. I really did like the game quite a bit. Didn't hook me quite as much as it could have, but there's a good game there, of course. But I mean, when you put this thing alongside things like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I mean, it's a different, it's going back to more bit of a traditional style Zelda, and it's good. I mean, if you're a big fan of Zelda games, you're going to enjoy it. It's got really clever stuff, but of course, I kind of, and I think maybe other people would have kind of really loved to see something like this implemented as a sort of, maybe like an expansion to Tears of the Kingdom or something. Have this whole Echoes thing where you're duplicating things and using them, but let people play Zelda in that world, that big, amazing, beautiful world that's so successful right now. Also, Harry Potter Quidditch Champions came out. We did review it, especially because my contributor Kelly, who helps out on some videos and writing, is a huge Harry Potter fan, and it's basically Quidditch Rocket League, and I think that it seemed kind of cool when we put the video together. It actually didn't seem so bad, but I'm pretty sure this thing's going to come to like Game Pass or something soon. It doesn't seem to have what it takes to stand up by itself. It should have been, free to play or gone to Game Pass or something, so we'll see. I did see the other day, especially on the sale that's happening right now on Xbox, that there was a pretty neat combo of Harry Potter, Hogwarts Legacy and Harry Potter Quidditch Champions bundled in for a pretty good price. So if you're a big Harry Potter fan, go check out that bundle. That might actually be pretty good for you.
I'm sorry to say this, but Starfield may very well be dead.
Do not toy with me.
I then also took a look at Shattered Space when it came out. I was actually planning on doing a full Shattered Space review when the DLC came out. But the truth of the matter is, I was just feeling a bit dejected by the time it came out. The reviews hit before I got to really play it properly because I didn't get it early, and everything was looking pretty bad, and I just felt kind of down on Starfield at the time. And so yeah, I played it a decent chunk, but never got into like the full meat and potatoes of that game. And combined with what the reviews were saying and the talk going around, I just sort of lost interest in a way that I think a lot of people lost interest. And I still want to like Starfield, but I don't know what the hell to say, because I want to like it more than I do like it. And it's not a terrible game, but it really isn't what it could have been. And there's all the questions going around now. Is it coming to PS5? I think it is. The way the Microsoft... I mean, I said in this video that it seems to be the logical next step. It also wasn't great on Xbox, but the PS5 is a really big market. And there's a lot of people there who are still Bethesda fans who want to play the new Bethesda game. So they can play it and moan about it once they get it or whatever. But it's not a bad game. And the way that the Xbox strategy has gone now, I don't see this not happening. I'm almost dead certain that this is going to PS5. So yeah, we'll find out with some of the new announcements and things happening in the future. I reviewed around about the time of Halloween a small little indie sort of top-down Resident Evil-esque World War I game called Conscript. Ultimately, Conscript sort of was okay, but I like the fact that it's got all these throwbacks to Resident Evil, but this whole idea of it not having any supernatural element and just relying on the World War I thing, it could have worked a bit better, and they did do some stuff cool, but I wish it grabbed me more than it did. Either way, it's a small indie game. If you find it on a sale, you might dig it. I think there's some good in that game. On that note of Halloween, pushed me into a really fun video that I made, or just I enjoyed putting it together because I love Halloween so much. I made a video of just the best horror games available on Game Pass right now that you can play. I did that just before Halloween. I think there's a little bit of a lack of crossover between people who have Game Pass and are actually looking for horror games, because horror fans tend to already know what they're doing. But that video is up on the channel, so if you're ever looking for something fun and horror-y to play on Game Pass, there's some really good options there. And you know what, in the video as well, I touch on the fact that if you don't like horror games, don't miss out on spooky games, because spooky games are awesome too. You get games like Costume Quest and Luigi's Mansion, and some of these things where, things like Inside or whatever, where it's not a horror game. Its goal is not to scare you, but it's got spooky elements, so you get to enjoy that sort of mystery and intrigue that comes with supernatural or creepy stuff. But they're not trying to give you a heart attack in your living room. And yeah, moving on to sort of somewhere in the middle. S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 Heart of Chernobyl finally came to Game Pass after a very, very hectic development cycle that they had with the people having, the team having their home countries and cities bombed. Some of the guys had to go off to actually fight. Some of them actually died. They had to relocate and keep going. And it finally came out, and it is a bit janky. And I did a video before it came out because I was actually really excited to play this game because it looks interesting, and I'm intrigued by the fact that there's this whole survivor element to it and everything. And I'd never played any of the other ones, so I got quite amped to play it, and a lot of people were amped as well. I actually met quite a lot of the S.T.A.L.K.E.R community in the comments, and the people were really cool, I must say, and people were really supportive of a newcomer coming to it, but also telling me that the old ones are cool and I must check them out. Now they did like a remaster trilogy recently, and I wouldn't mind actually picking up some of the older ones on something like Switch, where I can just like take them with me and play when I'm not dedicated gaming at home. But yeah, anyway, so that game now, I have since been playing it a lot after it did come out as a sort of S.T.A.L.K.E.R newcomer. It's still kind of janky and has some issues, which is a little bit disappointing because I wanted to not have those issues, but the Unreal Engine 5 that they're using is giving a few hiccups here and there. This game could definitely benefit, I mentioned earlier, from a 40 FPS mode. I would really love that because right now the 60 feels like it's just sort of not handling, and it's definitely not worth playing on the 30 FPS for me. It just feels a bit too janky, I think, because it doesn't even hold 30 sometimes. But I think like with time, if this gets better optimization, it will get better and better. The truth is that the frame rate is actually good most of the time, but there's just some areas where it gets a bit janky, like in the towns and things. But yeah, I have been enjoying it though. I think it's a fascinating world, and I like the survival elements of it and everything. So I'm going to be jumping back into that when I can now and playing some more. Then a big controversial game that came out this year and really took over quite a lot of headlines, and that is Dragon Age the Veilguard. And I am in two minds about this as well, because I'm not as big into Dragon Age. I played Dragon Age Inquisition and didn't like it as much as most others. I thought it was a cool game though, but I didn't like it that much. And I'm a huge Mass Effect fan, like many other people, but Inquisition was cool. Like I said, this is an okay game. I think the main point that I covered in my videos really is just that this game is okay. It's actually fine. It's not brilliant, but it's not bad. And again, a lot of these content creators are coming online and they want to shout and scream about woke this and modern audiences that and everything. And I want to focus on if a game is fun to play or not. And that apparently makes you crazy in this day and age, because you're supposed to have all these opinions on all these things. I do think that some of these elements have hurt the game. The game was not served by all of the decisions that were being made, and some of them were just nonsensical, right down to the fact that I found that things like the character creator, because they're trying to accommodate sort of these non-binary characters and things like that, it landed up just, they've got the right idea, but they're not like backing it up with good, user experience and design. So so everything starts feeling sort of jumbled and non-focused, because they can't rely on the structure of a previous binary system where it's like, oh, choose a man, here's your hairstyles, here's your facial hair, whatever, here's a woman, here's this, here's that. Now it has to sort of accommodate everything, but they're not equipped. These people aren't skilled, or they're lacking the right sort of capabilities in their teams to be able to make that concept work well. And then the writing is also a little bit shoddy and things like that, could be better. But in the end, really, it's not a bad game though. Like it's again, you can't put it next to something like Baldur's Gate 3, which will absolutely destroy it in every single metric. But if you just want like a sort of fun, casual action RPG with fantasy elements and stuff, yeah, play it. Like, it's cool. If there's one or two things that make your eyes roll, who cares? I mean, it's actually not a terrible game. But again, where would you put it on the how much would you pay scale? I'd say on a sale or something like that, definitely give it a look. And if it's on something like Game Pass, then completely, like, just play it. Because then if you don't like it, you just stop playing it. But I mean, I think you might like it. I didn't have to get fully into my Nextradamus mode to fully call what was going on here, because it felt like it was so obvious. But one of the biggest releases this year that was going to come and that was coming, especially for Xbox and Game Pass, was Call of Duty Black Ops 6. It's just so much fun, and it is such a great game, and it is the best Call of Duty that they've made in years. They had their best teams working on an excellent campaign, excellent multiplayer. They added the zombies mode. This was the full deal, and for Microsoft to release the first Call of Duty game under their banner, it could not have been better than this, I think. I mean, here is a game that is just great across the board, and it's introducing omni movement and all this stuff that, you know, is a bit of a game changer. Although I must say, late into playing the multiplayer now, you don't see the omni movement stuff as much. People just mostly running and sliding around. You don't see the Max Payne diving quite as much. But that said, it was still something new and fresh. And I think that this is definitely one of my favorite games of the year. I mean, I've put in so much time already. The multiplayer is so much fun to go jumping into. And on top of that, I just need to give an absolutely big, loving shout out to the Prop Hunt gaming mode that has become one of my favorite things of this year. If you don't know this, Prop Hunt is where you play rounds as either the hunters or the props, and when you're the props, you look like stuff from the level, like a cabinet, chairs, you know, bins, whatever, and you have to run around and go. It's basically a hide and go seek for grown-ups. So you have to go find places to go and hide, and then the hunters have to go and find out where they are by shooting at them to find out what's a prop and what's not, and then every now and then the props give off a whistle to give off their location. And what's really fun about this is that, well, there's these other elements that where you can use flashbangs on yourself to sort of blind people and then start running. And you also get to, twice, you can then change what shape you are. But it just leads to, it's led to some of the most funniest, just hilarious, laugh out loud moments and tense moments when, you know, you're sitting as a little bin in the corner and you're really sitting there trying to, you know, be inconspicuous. And then the guy just looks at you too long and you panic, and then you flashbang him and you run around the corner in the middle of an office building and you decide to drop a decoy and swap to something else, and you swap to like a giant tree in the middle of an office block. So now you're a massive tree running around in the middle of office desks, and there's people shooting at you and you're trying to get outside to change again. Things like that. It's just been so much fun. I would totally play a Call of Duty that was just this mode forever. Like, and one thing I really love about it is that I have friends, even my wife, who's not that big into actual Call of Duty multiplayer, because it's quite hardcore these days. But we get together to play Prop Hunt because it's just such a good time and it's so accessible for anyone to play. So Call of Duty Black Ops 6 has really been a highlight for me of this year. I can't believe a Call of Duty game was this much of a highlight in a year for me. I mean, it's been a long time since that's been the case. And adding that little extra cherry on top of Prop Hunt, even better. So yeah, a real win for Microsoft here, a real win for everyone who can get the game and play it on wherever they are. I would love to see Call of Duties be at this level going forward, but I don't think that's going to be manageable. But you know, at least for this one, what a great game. I'm looking forward to playing lots more multiplayer and lots more, and as the new maps come and new modes and things come out.
It's finally happened, a high-quality, polished, great-looking Day 1 Game Pass game.
So then leading into the last videos that I made for the year is the big Game Pass release, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, that came from Machine Games and was released, like I mentioned, on Game Pass by Xbox. And we already know that this game is going to be coming to PS5 in America's spring. So it's not quite the exclusive that the Xbox should have had, because we know that it's going somewhere else, but this game is really good, really good. And the more that you play it and the further you get into it, I think the more it really shows off just how good this is and how much this team, which I already had full faith in, which is why I did a video before the game came out even, of why this team that used to be Starbreeze and made games like the Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay, The Darkness, and the Wolfenstein games, why I was so confident these guys were going to make a really good game, and boy did they deliver. It's not quite what everyone might have wanted or expected though, but I think this is also okay. Because if we go and look into this game and what the expectations were, then we hear that, you know, people were expecting at first for it to be some sort of Uncharted game. We all thought it was just basically going to be Xbox Uncharted, and it was going to be probably third person, all that sort of stuff, you know, maybe something like Tomb Raider. But it's not. It's its own thing in a way, and it's really special as a result, again, because there's some very talented people working on this, some great writers working on this, and also just a deep understanding of the source material and what made it good, which seems to be something very hard to come by these days. And the major point I want to make about Indiana Jones, I mean, aside from a few little notes to say that the game runs so well. It's got the smooth 60 FPS gameplay in first person, which really makes the first person work so well. But it's got the smooth 60 FPS gameplay. It's got really good writing. It's got great level design. And again, it understands the source material so well. But I think that what needs to be discussed here, and what really stands out for me, is that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is the future of adventure games. And I really mean that, because in modern day, the closest thing I've played to something that sort of touches on this is actually L.A. Noire from Rockstar Games. Because when I played L.A. Noire, I remember thinking to myself, man, this feels like I'm playing a true evolution of Police Quest from back in the day. It felt like I was playing some form of 3D open world Police Quest sort of point and click adventure, because you were finding evidence, picking it up, looking at it, you know, then you went and spoke to people and interviewed them. Now, of course, in L.A. Noire, there was this heavy play, or this heavy focus on the dialogue and having to figure out if people are lying and things like that. So there was that element to it, but it was like a PC. It was like this sort of weird version of an old school PC adventure game. Now, the people who were hoping that Indiana Jones was going to be some form of Uncharted, that never made sense to me, as much as I also thought that's what it was going to be. When you think about it, and when you think about people who deeply love the source material wanting to make something faithful, it just doesn't make sense. Like, let's not forget, and this does come up in other places quite often, Nathan Drake is a mass murderer. Like, this dude gets every game that dude gets through. He has like a body count higher than every single action movie star you've seen combined, you know, and that is difficult to, you know, there's like this sort of element of cognitive dissonance, and there's this sort of element where we're just meant to be okay, you know, with the fact that there was this cool story in Nathan Drake and everything, but like when you really look at it, it's like crazy. Like, the dude's like killed so many people, and surely all of them weren't so evil they deserve to die. And you've got a game here where where Indiana Jones is fighting literal Nazis, and you know, this isn't Wolfenstein. You can't have an Indiana Jones story fit in seamlessly with the movies, where this game takes place between the first movie and the second movie, and you can't have Indiana Jones playing, you know, playing his role in the first movie, punching a few dudes, chucking a guy off a truck, you know, hitting a guy into a thing, guy dies, or he, you know, shoots the dude with a sword. You know, it happens. This is an adventure movie. And then have a second movie where Indiana Jones kills like 600 people in a rain of gunfire, and then carries on into Temple of Doom, and we're just supposed to forget about it. That's why, as an adaptation, it would seem like a silly video game adaptation. And instead, here you're playing a game where you really do feel like Indiana Jones. And they've done this by being respectful, and by understanding, again, a set of gameplay mechanics that really let you be the character. And when you're walking around these areas and you're speaking to people and changing your outfits, and you are hiding and ducking through places and having a few fist fights, at first I was like, man, is this a little bit too slow paced? Am I secretly sort of, you know, hoping here or wishing that I had a bit more action? But after you get into the groove and you play this more and more, you just start realizing, like, man, this is perfect. Like, I just really as it develops and goes further, I really feel like I am actually involved in the story, in the telling of a new Indiana Jones story, and a good one. I mean, I watched The Crystal Skull, and I haven't even watched Dial of Destiny, and from what I hear, from what people keep telling me about Dial of Destiny, I probably never will. It feels like it's going to be one of those movies that is better left unwatched and not, doesn't taint everything. But here we have a game that is not just so good that it feels like it is a real worthy addition to the 3 original Indiana Jones movies, that it's almost sad that we'll never have this made as a movie and slotted in. And it makes me want more of them, because they've said between the movies and things like that, they seem like there's other stories that can be told. And they could. I mean, they could go and pop in 1 or 2 more games like this in between Temple of Doom and The Last Crusade, and maybe one after that. But I mean, considering what happens with the movies after that, they could do 5 more of these that take place after the original 3 movies. And if they're good, they could just keep going. Now, I don't know if that would be possible or a good idea, but I'm just saying, this is good enough. This is really a true addition to the story, and I'm very impressed. So yeah, this is a real win for them. And yeah, it's going over to PS5 next year, and PS5 people don't get Game Pass at the moment, so they're going to have to fork out full money for it, but it's a really good game. And to come back to the main topic here, it is what I believe to be the future of adventure games, because you know what, I loved point and click adventure games when I was a kid, and we played them a lot. But the truth of the matter is now, I struggle to play those now, because we are just in a new era, and we sort of think a different way and play a different way. So it's nice to play things like I mentioned earlier, Stasis, Bone Totem is sort of along those lines. And on console, if you're playing on console, it's a little bit different because you don't have that PC sort of mouse and keyboard element. But something like this Indiana Jones reminds me sort of The Dig, in that The Dig was going to be, if you don't know The Dig, it's this incredible sci-fi point and click Lucasfilm or LucasArts game that was originally going to be a Steven Spielberg movie, but didn't happen, and then they decided to turn it into a game. And you could feel the depth of that movie project in the game, because it felt special. And this feels like it's almost the other way around. This isn't a movie that became a game. This is almost like a game that you want to become a movie. And I think that this kind of platform and what Starbreeze have shown us here really shows that there is a place for these kind of games still, but they need to evolve, and this is what they can evolve into, and ultimately deliver something that sort of makes you feel once again like you're walking around, talking to people, checking your inventory, solving puzzles and all that, but in a way that feels right to what we are now. This is the modern audience that sometimes gets spoken of, where people try to use this as a derogatory term now to be some sort of, social political thing. But modern audiences in this context being just, we're used to playing games a new way, this is the way to do it. And I love it. And I really hope that we get to see more games like this going forward, and if possible, some more Indiana Jones games. So it goes without saying then, if you haven't played Indiana Jones and the Great Circle yet, I think it's a great game also to play for the holidays. It's easy to get into. It has its challenges, but it's got a lot of difficulty settings as well. It feels like a great, awesome holiday sort of blockbuster game for everyone to go and play as an adventure. So, and this game could work really well in cloud gaming because it's first person, but it doesn't require fast reflexes or good aiming. Yeah, you can have a good time. I have streamed this from my console to my phone using a controller clip while the TV was in use in the house, and it played great. I didn't feel like I was struggling just because I'm streaming it. So yeah, there's some good potential here, and this could again be the potential future of what Xbox is trying to pull off. Because if there's a game like this that can run well on a controller and a TV with cloud gaming or on a phone or whatever, and it's a a really big mass market IP that people can easily enjoy, they really might have something here. Right, so I'm going to get wrapping up this video. I think my lungs are actually like in pain from talking for this long. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm already a professional at talking a lot, so this is a pretty good achievement from me. But to wrap up 2024 as a gaming year, I think that this is a year that the gaming industry is in a pretty bad state. We've got, layoffs and things like that happening. Traditional media is dying. Grifters, these sort of outrage, bozos online are, starting to dominate in ways that they never have. And it's not going to stop because these people are basically getting paid to generate outrage as much as possible. And they even admit to it. They even admit behind closed doors that they don't even believe everything they're saying, but it pays the bills. And we're just in this era now where, we just had the Game Awards and a lot of announcements, a new Naughty Dog game and some of these other things, and immediately, it's just how it is now. The game gets shown off and immediately these guys are jumping into their videos to talk about how terrible this is and how much they're disrespecting the audience, and basically if there's a female lead in a game, it's useless, and unless that female lead looks like a literal sex doll, then you're being disrespected and you mustn't buy it and you must go against it. This is not going to stop now. This is the new way of things, and everything that's going to happen, as long as these people are being boosted and are making money for this, they are going to do it forever until the internet explodes or implodes or this bubble bursts somehow. What I am saying is, as a gamer and a consumer of not just gaming and the games industry, but also of news and info and content, just be extra vigilant now, really, because we're now in a time where you can't just trust what you're hearing. We have so many sources now. Go look at other things. Go watch other videos. If I make a video, don't just watch my video. Watch a few more. Get a better view. Biases exist, and it's, some of us are still trying to not be biased, but others aren't. They just know that if they just go a certain way. If I make a positive video, it won't do that well. If I took the same video and I just absolutely made it negative and horrible, I have no doubt in my mind that my views will shoot up and I'll get a lot of people coming to watch it. But I refuse. I'm not going to play that game. I'm in this for passion and for love of gaming. And there are still other good guys out there who are doing it. Please go support them, and just be careful when you listen to these other people who are just literally playing people for a fool for money. And I'm really sad to say that this whole sort of element of the gaming industry is what has stuck with me the most in 2024. More than anything else, more than what games were doing and what was coming next. But I mean, that is 2024, and it has been an interesting year in some other ways, not just that. So, it's been a decent year in gaming. We got some good games to play, which is great. And it's nothing like 2023, but it was good. I mean, there's some good stuff out there. You're not going to go wrong if you go and get a whole bunch of games from this year's release schedule and play them. You're going to have a good time. If I remember 2024 for anything, it will be these, like I said, these grifters and outraged people and layoffs and all that stuff. And, which is a shame, as I said. But there is a lot going on now with uncertainty for the future of gaming, which is kind of worrying, but also it's kind of exciting and it's interesting because we've got, the PS5 and the way it's doing things and sticking to its exclusives and, even paying other publishers, we sort of know now to not bring things out on other platforms, while we've got, and also releasing a PS5 Pro, which is kind of almost nonsensical and no one knows what it's for. It's really just, it's not like the PS4 Pro was or anything. It's nice, I guess, but it's so weird that is so in the opposite direction of Xbox, which is now saying everything is an Xbox, and they look to be updating their software and things on PC because they want this to be more integrated. I think they were going to want to get Game Pass on everything. They are going to upset a lot of their fans who feel like they're not being, they're not being rewarded for being loyal fans over the years, and it's a business model and all that. So we're gonna see where that goes, and we're gonna see how that pans out. But either way, it's really interesting to see them going in such very different directions. And then on top of all of that, the uncertainty of what in the hell Nintendo's about to do with their new Switch. You know, is it even going to be called the Switch 2, the Switch Pro, the Super Switch? I really like Super Switch. I hope they go with that. But even then, it's going to be a bit more confusing. Are people just going to think it's like an upgraded Switch and not care? Or does it need to have enough of a name? You know, maybe the new Switch or something like that. They might go with that naming convention. But is this going to be worthwhile for them in the end? Is it going to really be a big step that people are going to move over to? Or is it going to confuse people like they did with the Wii U and be a big problem? They don't have Iwata over there anymore, and he was one of the big innovators there. So, as a very good friend of mine always mentions to me that it was a big loss when Iwata was lost, because he would push for that innovation and he would push for these things. Same like we're seeing with Apple since Steve Jobs went, you know, they're carrying on, but you haven't seen Steve Jobs level innovation since he's disappeared. So I hope that doesn't happen to Nintendo, and I hope they can also, you know, bring something truly special forward again. Okay, but you know what, to name some highlights of the year for me, I mean, there were, to end it on a bit of a good note, I mean, some of the games this year that I really did enjoy that I played came in the forms of, you know, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I didn't get to play Helldivers 2 myself, but man, that game looks just so fantastic. I can't wait to get my hands on that. Then we also have Space Marine 2, which was just absolutely epic and really delivered on what it said it was going to be. And then, yeah, I just have to give a really big sort of shout out in a way to the new Call of Duty Black Ops 6, because this was the first one that Microsoft, you know, released under their banner properly, and it's been such a phenomenal time. I've had a really good time with this game. It's the first time I've enjoyed a Call of Duty this much in a long time, despite enjoying Modern Warfare 1 quite a lot, especially the multiplayer. I say the Modern Warfare 1, the remake, or the whatever you want to call it, reboot that happened a little while ago. But yeah, that game has just been excellent, and I mean, good campaign, good multiplayer, a real win there for everyone. Yeah, on top of that, the Shadow of the Erd Tree DLC, so cool. The Star Wars Outlaws really stuck with me, believe it or not. Like, that is a game that I look back at very fondly from this year. So that one is definitely a highlight for me, because it just was, the exploration and things like that, the detail that you find when you give it the time of day, it's really good. So I like that part of it a lot. And yeah, I guess so weird for me to say, but on top of, you know, liking that a lot of these live service games like Halo Infinite just getting better and better, Forza just getting better and better, but, you know, then just this weird situation where I'll have some fond memories of some really good time playing XDefiant this year, and just watching that game absolutely crash and burn and have Call of Duty bury it even worse at the end. So yeah, what a weird year of some ups and downs and some good memories and everything. If you've stuck it out this far in the video, thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for listening. And also, if you've stuck it out with me for the year, thank you again so much for being a part of this whole adventure. It can get pretty tough sometimes, I won't lie, but I mean, when you're doing it for the passion, you sort of feel down at times, you know, after putting in a lot of work, and then you just perk up again because you find something else that's interesting that you want to make a video about, to talk about. And so again, thank you to all of you, and thank you for a good year in gaming. I hope you've had a great time. I hope you guys have a good break, and I hope that everyone comes back and that we have a really kick-ass 2025. So while I might do some clips of existing videos or this video and put them up on the channel, this is then likely my official last full video for the year. So for the last time, I will say thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button to let me know, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. I will not see you soon because I'm also going on a break, and I'm going to go and enjoy the rest, play some games, have a bit of a chill with my family, and I hope the best for all of you as well. I'll see you next year. Happy gaming. Cheers.